Hi there. So in this video, we will learn how to label our inputs. Currently, we have the placeholder attribute inside of all of our input, and this placeholder text is currently visible here in all of the inputs. But what happens when I just write something and then I forget about that? Like, hey, what I should be entering here? So we want something permanent for the users so that the user experience is a little bit better. So this is what is label used for. So let's get started. Now, so to label our input, what we have to do, there is a two-step process. The first step is to create the label element in HTML. So here we will do label, and yeah, VS Code autocompletes, and here we have this for attribute inside of the label, which I will get back to in a bit. But first, inside of this label element, we have to provide that particular, like the label which we want to display in our web page for this particular input. So we can do something like here the username, okay, and save. Now if I go here, so we have this username. Okay, I have a little bit typo, so user name, I believe. Okay, now it is a bit better. Okay, now here is our label. But the thing is, when I click on this particular label, nothing happens. So the second step is to connect this particular label with this particular input. So how we can do that? And we can do that by this for attribute. So for here, I am saying like username. And now what we have to do basically inside of this particular input or the input which you want to link this label with, you have to like add the ID, particular ID, and the ID should not be random. The ID has to be this for attribute here. What is the value of the for attribute? So ID, and then we can do here username. It has to be the same. This for attribute value and this ID value has to be the same for the linking to work. Now, if we go to the browser and click on this username, see my input gets focused. So here we have successfully linked the username label to this particular input. Awesome. So this is how the label works in HTML. So now we can use the placeholder and the label at the same time, doesn't matter. And when we type, we will not forget about anything. And many of the cases, like you have seen many of the inputs which do not have a particular label, which is fine as well. But like in my opinion, whenever you are creating some sort of form or something like that, there should be a label associated with your input. So whenever we are creating the inputs, there should be associated label with that. But if you are using something like some component libraries, there is something like the material UI or something like that. So there you have the option to floating labels as well, which looks nice. Currently our input and the label looks terrible. So we can fix everything by CSS. Okay, so let's link up all of our inputs inside of our web page. So let's create another label, and for it is email, because I will add the ID email. So email, and here I will add the of ID of email. Okay, now here inside of here label for password. Okay, and the ID has to be oh, there has to be ID should be password. Okay, and for the age as well, we will create the label. Okay, and here I will do the age. And now here I'll create the ID of age. Okay, now our inputs are properly labeled. Okay, so this ID is password, this ID is email, and this is for age. So let's go to the browser, and if I just zoom out a little bit, okay, this is nice. So we have all the inputs here and with their associated labels, and here all of the labels are properly linked with that particular input. So if I click on age, this focuses up, email, username. Awesome. So we have learned how we can label our inputs and connect the inputs with that particular label. Also, labels are very helpful when the user is using screen readers, because the screen reader will read out loud the label for that particular input. The screen reader usually like uh, reads out the placeholder text as well, but it is better to have the label whenever we can. Okay, it is a good practice to have labels for our inputs. So awesome.